a trading post that brings two worlds together. The most popular TV show in Arizona history, the legacy of two brothers from a century ago.
For 35 years, the kids show Wallace and Ladmo entertained Arizonans with a mix of cartoons, flawed characters, and skits that many times were aimed at adults. And bringing together show founder Bill Thompson and character generator Pat McMahon is like a Beatles reunion. The magic comes back instantly as the two talked about McMahon's legendary tardiness.
We all had our problems. Mine, of course, was drinking. And Lad's was gambling, and Pat's was tardiness.
Yes.
But it was, you know, it made us more human.
And tardiness sounds so much more humane and genteel than "you're late again."
The Wallace and Ladmo show originally started as a spin-off from the Goldust Charlie show in 1954, which aired on KPHO, Arizona's first television station. The show was an instant hit, so popular kids would run to and from school to watch it every day.
It's Wallace gets his show in 1954, in the spring of 1954. By the end of 1954, every other television show's kid show is off the air. He took them all down.
At first, It's Wallace was a one-man show with a lot of pop skits. But Thompson wanted to write for two-man skits. That's when Vladimir Kwiatkowski, an ex-Arizona State University baseball player and KPHO cameraman, came in. Thompson pulled Lad, as he was called then, from behind the camera, something he did with many other crew members. But Ladmo was different.
He came in, and he said, "Lad, what are you looking for?" And he says, "I dropped my Congressional Medal of Honor." And I said, "Well, where'd you lose it?" He says, "Out in the hallway." And I said, "Well, why are you looking in here?" And he says, "Well, the light's a lot better in here."
Wallace and Ladmo entertained kids for about 5 years as a duo. Then one day, a guy named Pat McMahon, who had grown up in a vaudeville family, happened to be passing through town on his way to start a showbiz career in New York.
And I watched these two guys do hysterically funny, satirical material about the show, about the station, about broadcasting in general, about the town, about the mayor. And I said, I can't believe this. This is a kid show. Well, of course, obviously it turned out that it wasn't.
McMahon's vaudeville experience allowed Thompson to expand the skits on the show, adding a whole repertoire of characters, all played by McMahon.
Each one of his characters was flawed. There was something wrong with every one of them. You know, that was what was so darn funny.
McMahon's most well-known character was a spoiled brat, supposed nephew of the station's general manager, and kin to all Arizonans rich and powerful, Gerald.
That was a 10. You know,
that was your responsibility. You invited these little jerks down here. You got them out of the alley where they usually hang out. Reminds me, I should pick up a new copy of Lord of the Flies.
The character was inspired by people Thompson grew up with and by pro wrestling.
He, Wallace, the referee, would never see what was going on between Ladmo and Gerald, just like the referee in the wrestling match never saw really what was going on between the two wrestlers. So it frustrated the audience so much, and that's what he did to kids who would see Gerald do something mean to Ladmo and then see Wallace, having no clue of what was going on, think about punishing Ladmo instead of Gerald. Kids would go crazy, and you really honestly hated Gerald so much.
I can't understand.
While Gerald played the brat and Wallace was the straight man and the writer of most of the skits, Ladmo was the big kid, everyone's friend.
He was their buddy. He always took their side, and he was just like one of them. You know, like the business about getting blamed for things, and he liked everything that they liked. Yeah, and actually, there was a lot of the big kid in Lad.
Ladmo never was anybody but Ladmo.
Although Ladmo died in 1994, his legacy lives in the Ladmo bag. It's a collection of sponsors' products put into one bag that spawns incredible desire in those who grew up watching the show but never got one. The Ladmo bag was awarded through drawings, pictures sent in by viewers, and various other ways. It was given out to the studio audience during the show. Although it was called the Ladmo bag, it was created by Pat McMahon out of expediency's sake.
It was all because it just slowed the pace of the show down so dreadfully to have a kid picking out one of George Bradbury's toy cottage. Wallace used to say, "You want the airplane? This is a neat. Now I've got one of those. Maybe, nah." And the pace of the show had been like this, and then went right into the dumpster.
The show continued to change over the years, featuring skits like The Time Machine and Gerald's Monster. Characters came and went, some staying longer than others. Pat McMahon played Boffo the Clown, a clown who hated children. Marshall Good, the cowboy from New Jersey who always bummed quarters from kids. Captain Super, the right-wing superhero that needed a nightlight to sleep. And Aunt Maud, the senior citizen that told twisted fairy tales. Mike Condello added a musical element to the show.
Soggy cereal.
There were characters added in the 80s. Dan Horn, the ventriloquist. And Jody, played by actor Kathy Dressbach. She played various female characters on the show. Despite all the changes, one thing remained constant: the show's spirit of madcap fun.
Time's up.
The Wallace and Ladmo show signed off for the last time on December 29, 1989, after 9,000 TV shows, 8,000 stage shows, and nearly 40,000 Ladmo bags. Although it's been many years since the show went off the air, it still remains popular.
I feel like, that we meant something to the community.
We love you. Thanks for coming.
When John Lorenzo Hubble opened what would become his flagship trading post on the Navajo Reservation, it was 1878. Barter had always played an important role in the tribe's economy, and Hubble's timing couldn't have been more favorable. The Navajos had survived forced exile to Fort Sumner, New Mexico a decade earlier, and after years of recovery, they were ready for commerce and the many new goods the outside world had to offer. Enterprising businessmen like Hubble recognized this valuable opportunity, and trading posts became an increasingly important part of reservation life.
The trading post was the place where you would go to buy your groceries, where you would go and buy all of your essential needs, your commodities, your sugar, your flour. The local people would weave a rug, for instance. They'd bring it over to the trader, and the trader would then exchange that rug, hence the word trade, for merchandise. It's really a general store with at least one of everything available to the customer.
Like most trading posts, Hubble's was more than just a store. It was an ambitious undertaking that included a freighting business that restocked post supplies and also transported the merchandise that had been taken in trade to a growing marketplace off the reservation.
They had a farming industry where they grew alfalfa and harvested that and would use that for their sheep and their cows and horses, but they also used it to sell to local customers. They did buy and sell sheep, so the property included a barn, it includes a bunkhouse. They were a whole enterprise.
On remote reservations where people lived miles apart, trading posts were also important as gathering places and sources for local information. Hubble's was no exception and became a flourishing enterprise. So much so that over the years, Hubble and his family created a successful franchise that once numbered as many as 23 posts across the Navajo Nation. But with the advent of the automobile, the vast distances that once separated tribes like the Navajo from the rest of the world became less of a barrier to commerce, and the age of the trading posts began to wane. J.L. Hubble died in 1930. His son Roman and daughter-in-law Dorothy took over the operation, but by the early 1950s, they were ready to retire. Yet they wanted to preserve the trading post and its valuable legacy.
They didn't want it to just disappear and sell off all the items, close the store, and have that be the end of the trading business. So through a number of years and many people involved, it was decided that perhaps the Park Service would be interested, and 1965, it became a National Historic Site.
Today, the Hubble Trading Post remains open for business, a vital part of the community, and the oldest continually operated trading post on the Navajo Reservation.
We still do business here as Hubble did business 130 years ago. Weavers from all over the reservation come here to Hubble and bring their weavings. We sometimes trade, part cash, part peso, as the Navajo call their currency, part grocery, or maybe an item that would be needed for a ceremony, possibly a wedding basket. We also trade for jewelry. We carry most of the staples that they need here and use regularly on the reservation. This is a rug by one of our local weavers, and she's one of the master weavers. These are woven by some of the grandmas in the community. And we do our best to buy everything that the grandmas bring in, because for many of them, this is their sole income.
When the weaver comes in, usually they bring in the rug, and then they usually have a set price, because usually they calculate their time on how much they spent weaving it. They give us a ballpark of what they want. And so we try to see what we can do for them. We agree on a price, and so we all leave happy. Mr. Hubble, he was known for his generosity to the local customers. So a lot of the weavers in this area and surrounding areas, they like to come here pretty much because their grandmother had brought their rugs here. And so they continue the tradition. And we have a huge market for it here at the site. We get customers from all over the world.
In addition to a selection of finely crafted goods, visitors to Hubble are provided with a window on another world and a chance to walk through history that is still very much alive. Since J.L. Hubble's time, much has changed on the reservation, but much remains the same. The vastness of the landscape, the spirit of the people, and an enduring example of enterprise that continues to bring two different worlds together.
We are preserving a trading post. It's going to continue as a trading post forever. All of the artifacts are on exhibit for visitors to look at and enjoy. But the most important thing about this specific historic site is we are preserving a way of life. It continues today. It's still a functioning trading post. It is live. It's real.
In the far southwestern corner of the state, where Interstate 8 enters Arizona from California, is a monument to a time-worn spot where countless before us have crossed the mighty Colorado. Native tribes such as the Mojave, Quechan, and Cocopah once lived here. Europeans arrived in 1540, when Spanish soldiers took rowboats north along the River of Good Guidance. In 1700, Jesuit missionary Father Kino spread Christianity and made maps here after a harrowing journey from Sonora along the aptly named Devil's Highway. In the mid-1800s, soldiers at Camp Yuma protected gold seekers bound for California, while steamboats as long as 140 feet plied the Colorado, hauling goods shipped up the Gulf of California. The railroad began crossing the river at Yuma in 1877. It's hard for today's speedy traveler to even catch a glimpse of the Colorado River and the place where so many came to cross it, Yuma Crossing.